Christopher and Patrick, first off, your film Code 3, it doesn't shy away from the tragedy of being a paramedic that paramedics experience, or from the gallows humor that paramedics use to cope with all of that intensity. How difficult was it to find the balance to lead the audience through all the ups and downs? Patrick, we could start with you.
Sure. So the tone of the film is one of those things that was really challenging to do. And so when we're talking about the gallows humor, that's really kind of the relief valve of those of us that have done that job, because it's really the only way for us to offload some of that. And it's almost like inside baseball for us. Like, we will get together and we'll talk about stuff, and it helps us decompress. When we try to expand that to a broader audience, like when, if I'm at dinner and I'm telling my family some story, oftentimes that story gets pared down quite a bit because they don't want the rated R version of the story. They want the PG version of the story. And so being able to thread that needle was something that we worked really hard on. But the best and only way to be honest is to tell that story with humor, because we can get much deeper, much darker, much more insightful if we use humor as kind of an on-ramp to that.
No,
And
Patrick's
Christopher?
take on. Oh, sorry. Patrick's take on it. Patrick's take on this movie about paramedics, about a very tough job, as a comedy was so mind blowing to me, and the fact that you could tell the truth that way. But which was one of our biggest goals, right? Was to try to make the experience of what it's like to be a paramedic, and that's where the tone comes from, and why that journey is so crazy, because that's the job. Like, I think it's, there's moments that are very high energy, there's moments that are very funny, there's calls that are kind of pointless and silly, and then there's calls that are like tragic, and that you can, in the real job, you can bounce from one to the other. And how do you capture that in a movie? That feeling, like that, to try to get a glimpse of what that job really is for people, because I think we all see it on television. We all think we know what the job is, and we really have no idea.
And Patrick, you yourself were a paramedic. What made you want to put those experiences in writing?
So it was really a homework assignment. I was a paramedic all through college, both undergrad and grad school. So I was a paramedic for a little over a dozen years, and I took a creative writing course as part of my undergrad. And the professor said something very cliche, but it was the first time I'd ever heard it. And he said, if you want to tell a compelling story, write what you know. And quite literally that night, I just came off this brutal 14-hour shift. And the only thought that went through my brain was, "Well, you want a story? I'll tell you a story." And cranked out this short story that ultimately became the skeleton of the script that you see today. After that, my brother, this is all his fault. My brother's a producer on the film, Paul Pianezza. He was the one who pushed me to write a script. He's the one who got it in front of Chris. And the rest of the way was fortuitous luck and dogged determination and Chris's brilliance. But this all stemmed from a homework assignment of someone who was just really, really burnt out at the time.
And what was the collaboration like between the two of you, working on this script when Christopher came on board? Christopher?
Well, for me, I was starting with a script that I, like I said, found totally fascinating, and it was just, like I said, Patrick had just kind of opened up his veins and just spilled out all these weird experiences he had in the form of a comedy. And so a lot of it for me was actually just Patrick and I just talking, and him just telling me about the job, and he would just tell me things sometimes. He was so deep in the job, he didn't even know how weird they were. He would just mention to me, for instance, that nobody ever dies in the ambulance. And he would just say that in passing. I'd be like, "What do you mean nobody dies in the ambulance?" And he's like, "No one ever dies in the ambulance. They're not allowed. It's legally impossible." And I was like, that's insane. But it just, the way it works, when you're a paramedic, if you start working on somebody, you got to keep working on them. Only the doctor or a coroner can declare them dead. And some of that stuff, so that would be like, well, that has to go in the movie. And so we would just kept finding all these strange details. Like I said, for me, it's through the looking glass, right? Like, most of the time when you see a paramedic in a movie, they're wheeling the hero in, at the end of the movie, they're wheeling the hero into the back of the ambulance. Whereas the real job is not at all what you think, and full of details that you would never imagine. And so it becomes like, it's almost like science fiction, that it's got its own rules and its own universe. And as you explore it, it was completely mind-blowing to me. And the more we talked about it, and you see how, well, you discover things. Well, why are paramedics this burnt out? And then so the movie keeps expanding, and you actually find out, more about the struggles in the healthcare system and how things really work. It's completely fascinating to me and very funny and high energy at times, but then also heartbreaking.
And as far as the collaboration goes, you couldn't have asked for a better partner. And I mean that with all sincerity. Chris and I have been working on this for the better part of almost 15 years at this point, and developed quite a strong friendship to the point that even when we were on set, I would never ever supersede him, but I would nudge him if something looked off, and I would just say like, "Hey, this looks off."
No, it was critical. It was critical to have Patrick as technical supervisor on set. I mean, one, because he'd lived every call was based on a real call, so he'd lived the job. But right, every detail it was a big goal of ours to try to get it as medically accurate as we could, and really wanted any paramedic, any real EMS worker to be able to watch the movie and go, "Wow, they got it right." And so we tried very, very hard to do right by them.
And you've got Rainn Wilson in the leading role, of course. He has to bring together the drama and the comedy of the film. He's excellent at both. Um, what made you bring him on board, or at what point did he come on board? And like what did he bring to the role that you
Oh man.
found special?
Well, I was already a huge Rainn Wilson fan, like before he was ever attached to the movie. I loved him in Super, and I loved him in 6 Feet Under, and of course we all know him as Dwight Schrute on The Office. And I was obsessed with him partially because he's able to bring layers of a character into one, especially a comedic role like Dwight. I think why Dwight is like one of the most iconic TV characters ever is that he's not just hilarious, he is hilarious, but there's a depth to him. There's like real compassion and love, but also I think Rainn brings this danger to Dwight, right? Like that, when he cuts up a CPR doll, it's like, yeah, that's a dude that just whips out a hunting knife. It's like, yeah, that guy's rendered a lot of deer carcasses in his day. And I think coming to a role like this, where he brings all that kind of depth, that he can be really funny, and as he gets stressed out, he gets even funnier, but then all this compassion and pathos and heartbreak. But when I heard that Rainn liked the script, I was really excited. And honestly, I was like a little nervous to meet him. But he was so smart. He was so good at pushing the script to be better. I have to tell you, and just pushing to be deeper and funnier. And so that was a pleasure. And like I said, I knew he'd be phenomenal in the role. That was without saying. But yeah, like to push the story, he really had a sense of what the movie should be and helped us get there.
And Patrick, what did you think of Rainn Wilson in this role, having lived those experiences?
I think you could not have had a more perfect portrayal of this job and that role done better. I think everything Chris said, his ability to bring the emotional weight of what this job can do and balance it with the humor was incredible to see in real time. And then you also see this depth of compassion that is beyond the bedrock of what he has left to give, but he still finds it in himself to provide that empathy to the people that are in crisis, even when he doesn't have enough for himself anymore, was gut-wrenchingly, like tearfully amazing to see. And it coincided very beautifully with what Chris and I's motives were for the film. And that was, Chris already mentioned, to be medically accurate, but to never insult those people that are in crisis. We set up things to be funny around the situation, but we really worked intentionally hard to make sure that we're never making fun of the patient that's having a problem.
And what do you both hope people take away from this film when they see it, Patrick?
My goal is that anyone who does the job at whatever level of training that they have, that they feel seen, appreciated, and validated for the work that they're doing. I think Well, I don't think, I know after doing the job for so long that it is a thankless job. And the hours that we put into training and education to make sure that we are at the top of our game when you need us is oftentimes just an assumed thing that the community has without understanding the toll that it takes on the individual providers. And so for me, I want people to who are in the job to say, number one, hey man, they got it right. And number two, they get it. The biggest thing we've been seeing in comments is, oh my God, it feels like someone's finally telling our story and telling it accurately. And that to me is the highest level of respect. Yes, I want to be an entertainer. Yes, I want to tell a compelling story. But especially with a story that's so personal to me, I want the people that do the job to really feel like we see you and we appreciate the stuff that you're doing.
Yeah. And for me, like, man, I'm not a paramedic. I'm a movie director. So it's like, I never lived it. I have no idea. But for me, I was trying to create the feeling of what if you were the fourth paramedic in that ambulance, right? Like, what if you went along for the ride for the night and witnessed all this stuff and felt what they feel? And so, yeah. And again, when you find out what the job really is, the movie, I think, turns your expectations upside down.
Well, I want to thank you both for talking with me today. It's been a pleasure, and thank you for this film.
Thank you,
Thanks so
Danny.
much, man.